And as a pilot, for me, like flying is my meditation. It's a pretty therapeutic way to like make the rest of the world sort of blend away and sort of get into a higher state of consciousness when you're flying them. I lost 3 friends in 6 months. I watched one of them go in. And then I came really close to going west myself. Inverted flat spins was like the thing that happened the most. Like guys would get killed in.
Inverted flat spin is you're upside down spinning.
Going straight down. And so it's my first time doing it by myself. And my heart is racing. I was terrified. I get back up, roll it inverted, push it up to the nose, put in the recovery, and the turn doesn't stop. Now I'm actually starting to panic. I'm gone from thinking I'm an incredible aviator to literally just a falling piece of flesh in a machine. It is completely out of control. I was so angry.
Yeah.
I trained so hard. I'd done all the right things as a pilot. Like I wasn't being irresponsible. And I threw the stick out of my hand because it wasn't doing anything and I'm getting ready to jump out of this airplane. And I get my hand up to go hit this red button. And just as I'm about to hit the red button, the spin starts to slow down. Now I'm at 1,500 feet. I have to make a decision. I wasn't sure if it was actually recovering or if it was fooling me again. Mm-hmm. And so if I went to recover and it fools me, I'm not gonna have time to get out. Or I can just jump out. And there was no thinking. I just grabbed the stick. As painful and scary as that was, it may have been the most important moment of my life.
Aviators, welcome to the Flight Club podcast. I'm your host, Jason Middleton. I'm a pilot, I'm an aviation entrepreneur, and I'm a huge fan of all the people that make aviation happen. Today's guest on Flight Club is one of these people that make it happen. He's a serial aviation entrepreneur. He's an investor in the future of aviation and air mobility. He's a fixed wing pilot. He's a helicopter pilot. He's qualified in 13 different types of jets, including the Boeing 747. He's the founder and chairman of Aviva, one of the largest jet brokers in the world. He's a co-founder and managing partner of UpPartners, investing in the future of air mobility. He's considered to be a thought leader in the future of air mobility. He's the chairman of the Arkansas Council of Future of Air Mobility. He consults governments. He consults industry leaders. He's an adventurer. He's even done an Ironman, people. Aviators, welcome to the show, my good friend, Mr. Cyrus Sigari. Dude, you and I have known each other for a long time.
Almost close to 20 years almost.
It's been a long time, man.
Yeah.
And we were the young guys. I remember, man, we were the young guys in the business, and we're getting some gray.
We are no longer the young guys, which sucks.
I know.
I miss being the young guy.
We were chasing those guys down, and here we are, just the old guys now.
Yeah.
But it was fun, man. We've had a lot of experience together, and we're going to tell a lot of stories today. But thank you very much for being here, Cyrus. And I'm just starting this podcast. You're one of my first guests. I couldn't think of anyone I'd rather do it with, and really appreciate you being here. I got a couple of questions for you. One question in particular to kick off our podcast today. We're going to talk a little bit about flying, since this is an aviation podcast. My question is, are all helicopter pilots adrenaline-fueled crazy people?
Yes.
They are?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, helicopters, you've been flying, 30, 40 years, something like that.
Not that long, but
flew fixed wing for, I think, 25 years before flying helicopters. And the best way to describe it is flying fixed wings like flying a car and flying helicopters like driving a motorcycle.
Oh,
and so the dynamics are very similar in terms of the differences. But helicopter pilots are a different breed, and they're interesting humans.
I agree. They scare me. You know that. We've flown together.
Yeah. I mean, it's...
like a quick story with this. I'm down in Santa Monica, and I call Cyrus up and just to come by and say hi and see how he's doing. And he's like, come on by the office. So I go by. His office is at Santa Monica Airport, and his helicopter's parked outside of his office. And we're chit-chatting for a while. He's like, let's go fly. I'm like, oh, God. Okay, fine. So we go out to the helicopter, and he's pre-flighting, and I'm standing there watching him pre-flight this helicopter. And there's a bolt apparently that holds, or a nut that holds the whole thing together at the top of the rotor assembly. Don't know anything about helicopters, but he's like, that doesn't look right. And I'm standing there like, seriously? And he's on his phone with his mechanic videoing, and his mechanic assured us that was the correct way it was supposed to be done. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, you sure this is okay? And he's like, yeah, let's go. You remember that?
It worked out just fine.
We
worked
made it
out
back
fine, yes.
But why? Like, what brought you to helicopters, man? After so many hours and years of fixed wing.
The thing with helicopters is there's a few things. One is, I consider fixed wing flying as made for transportation.
Yeah.
Helicopter flying for me is aviation. in that you are actively flying every second when you're flying a helicopter.
Oh, interesting.
And all your hands, both your feet, both your hands, eyes, the amount of information that's coming at you is very different.
Oh, interesting.
And you fly very low. Like average helicopter flight is like 500 feet to 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
You know, any higher than that, it feels weird.
Yeah.
And my best description is like you're borrowing the air to interact with the ground.
Yeah.
When you're flying helicopters, whereas when you're flying planes, you're getting as far away from the ground as you can to go as fast as you can.
Yeah.
And you know, I grew up flying out in the West the last 30 years. I thought I knew the West really well.
Yeah.
You don't know it at all until you start flying helicopters.
Yeah.
The amount, like what you see at 500 feet, be it rivers and mountains and deserts and beaches and like just stuff that you would have no way to like get into.
Yeah.
You know, you're over it in a jet in 20 seconds.
You never see it.
You never see it.
It's all flat from the jet.
Yeah. And so that's like the first thing. Second thing is it's an incredible way to give experiences to people. Like for me, I don't fly by myself, not because I'm afraid to. It's just like, I don't need to go by myself, but I love taking people because I get to relive my first experience over and over again. Yeah. And you can change somebody's life in a really like cool way and create a memory. So
that's so
much
cool.
more so than you can jumping into, I don't care, whatever kind of fixed wing airplane. The memories are very different.
It's really interesting you bring that up. My last guest was, he's a corporate jet pilot, very experienced G550 guy, and his first experience in aviation was a helicopter. And his early mentor in aviation was a helicopter guy that brought him in. That was. So I think you're right. It's like a very dramatic experience when you're in a helicopter. In an airplane, you take off and you climb out and it's smooth and it's not as tactical. You don't feel it as much. But when you're in a helicopter, I mean, you're in it, and it's a pretty dramatic feeling if you're not used to it, if you don't do it all the time.
And as a pilot, like, you know, for me, like flying is my meditation, and you cannot not think about flying helicopters. Like when you're in it, you have to be so present because there's a lot going on. Yeah. And it's a pretty therapeutic way to like make the rest of the world sort of blend away and sort of get into a higher state of consciousness when you're flying them.
I mean, you're a not to get off flying, but you're a super busy executive, running multiple businesses, meetings, probably a pretty stressed out guy in your normal business life. Is that getting in a helicopter? Is that your meditation? Get you away, puts you back in the present?
Yeah. In fact, I actually take meetings in the helicopter.
Really?
Yeah. Like what we did, we got together. I mean, I'll have somebody come in the office and there's a couple reasons to it. One, I love flying. So let's just go do this and talk about it in the sky or go land some cool spot. I got a mountaintop that I can go land at. We can have a visit. But it totally changes the dynamic of the meeting. Yeah. Like you give somebody a flight experience, things just sort of melt and you become much more human. And so I find it to be a really useful tool for connecting with people for the purposes of business, and it's fun. And I like teaching too, so I'll kind of teach folks even if they've never flown before. Yeah,
I mean, the first time you and I went up, you let me fly.
Yeah, and we made it back, which I was surprised.
I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Are you sure about this, Cyrus? I don't know, man.
No, you did great. And it's cool, right? Like you've been flying forever, and it's exciting for you.
Yeah, it was a totally new experience.
Yeah, and I think the ratio is like for every 20 fixed wing pilots, there's one helicopter pilot.
Really?
Yeah. So it's not a very large pool of people that fly helicopters. And it's already not a very large pool of pilots in the first place. There's only 600,000 pilots in the United States. Yeah. So, I definitely use it as a way to kind of like hit the reset button and get meditative and have fun.
How often are you flying these days?
Pretty often. I mean, I flew probably about 300 hours last year between fixed wing and helicopter.
Yeah, and you're still flying a jet every once in a while too.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you flying?
Phenom 300.
That's a nice jet.
It's a nice airplane.
Nice. Yeah, those are good. Do you on the do you think that the helicopter do you think is that something you're using to for a business sell, or are you just using it for fun? Like, are you using that to commute to like, I got a meeting down in San Diego, I'm going to fly a helicopter, and is it transportation for you?
I actually use it a lot for business. In fact, next week I'm flying it to San Diego for a meeting, and this past week I flew it to Long Beach for a meeting, flew it to Torrance for a meeting, flew it to Hawthorne for a meeting, like that Long Beach flight took me 17 minutes, would have taken an hour and a half with traffic that day.
Yeah.
And so yeah, no, I use it quite a bit for work, and I also use it for, as you mentioned, we're investors in the future of mobility.
Yep.
And like there's this whole new world coming of flying cars and eVTOLs and all that. And
I can't wait to talk about that. We're
yeah,
gonna do that for sure.
And a big part of my usage of a helicopter is to really like, unless you understand what it's like to land in a parking lot and kick up rocks and break car windows, you don't really know like the real operational like challenges about, all these new things that are coming.
Yeah.
And noise and sensitivity and safety. So it gives me a very different perspective around how you think about investing in the future of a flight through vertical eVTOLs, whatever it might be.
Yeah. So like the flying jet, so I'm a jet pilot, right? So I have a lot of experience in that, and I know what that's like. And it's, it's like you said, you take off, you climb to somewhere in the 40s, and you sit there and descend and land, and it's a very calm, controlled environment, and very structured. The automation does pretty much everything these days. I mean, as soon as you're 400 feet up, your autopilot's on, and you turn it off at 200 feet, and we don't fly these airplanes anymore. We manage them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of part of flying, and you have that experience as well. But and then the helicopters. But you also do some other flying as well. You've done some aerobatic flying.
Yeah, pretty early in my career, kind of got pretty hot and heavy in aerobatics.
Yeah.
And it was like a really cool chapter of my flying career, of wanting to be. Actually, one of my ambitions was to become a Red Bull Air Race pilot as like my side gig amongst my day job.
Side hustle, I like it.
Yeah.
All aviators have a side hustle.
We all should have one.
Have it.
And and so we bought a Pitts S2C, and man, that airplane taught me a lot.
Yeah. What color was it?
It was black and yellow.
I remember seeing that. Yeah,
it was
I
great.
That airplane. Yep.
Yeah, and so aerobatics was, in fact, there's a lot of similarities from the aerobatic world to helicopter world in terms of the sense that, like, you fly aerobatics, you're all in, you're using all the flight controls, you're in. There's no sitting back and pondering about a text message or something when you're doing aerobatics.
Right.
But yeah, it was a really, really, really important stage of my flying career.
No autopilot at all. No automation.
No.
All hand.
No, I mean, barely have an altimeter and airspeed indicator, and that's about it.
What was it's like did you go straight to the pits? Or did you?
I did a little like decathlon flying before, but like most of my real aerobatic training came in the pits.
You just jumped right into the big gun.
Right.
After it.
Yeah. At the time, it was the relative big gun. It was a while ago, but it was really, really cool experience. And I remember like soloing a pits.
Yep.
Was like, oh man, that was like one of the greatest like achievements because they're freaking hard to land.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't see the runway when you're landing, right? Tail dragger and you're coming in.
Just so our aviators know out there, if you're not familiar with the pits, it's a really small, super powerful bi-wing airplane, and just like a ripping. I mean, it's a crazy little airplane.
Yeah, I mean, it was really the premier aerobatic airplane for a good part of the aerobatic world until the monowing airplanes came out, the extras and the game birds, but really special. And everywhere you go, people would come out and when kids would want to play with it or see it, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah,
that's so cool. Well, how long? Well, are you still doing it? Are you still flying aerobatics?
No, I gave it up, and in a pretty short period of time. So I was flying aerobatics for pretty seriously for probably 5 years.
Yeah.
But it's a very hazardous sport.
I mean, I want to ask you about that. I've had several friends, fly west from aerobatic flying, and when I knew you were flying aerobatics back in the day, and I worry, any of my friends that fly aerobatics, I worry about.
Yeah.
And do you have any close calls in that thing?
Yeah. I mean, I had a really interesting period of time. I lost 3 friends in 6 months. I watched one of them go in. Yeah. And then I came really close to going west myself. And, once kind of all that sort of came together, it's like, I think I got the T-shirt on this, and I'm ready to move on to the next chapter of my flying career.
Yeah. Can you talk about it?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So when I was thinking about buying the pits, I remember I was researching like, hey, how do people get killed in these things? Like, it's probably a good thing to know before you start going in. And particularly in the pits, it was Inverted flat spins was like the thing that happened the most that guys would get killed in.
Inverted flat spin is your upside down spinning on the center axis.
Going straight down. And it's a goofy maneuver. And so I remember like reading that, like, wow, I guess that's a thing I should really be careful about and like get really trained in. And so I did some of those during sort of my early aerobatic training days. And then I got into competition, and I started, and competition has different levels, like basic, sportsman, intermediate, advanced, and unlimited. And I was, moving up the ranks and the different levels of competition. And then as you get to advanced, you have to do inverted spins in competition.
Oh,
you have to like show them you do it in competition with like precision, like one turn, stop, and then like go on to the next maneuver.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to really work hard on these. But I had like anxiety about it. And I hadn't really had much anxiety ever flying except for this darn maneuver. And so I had a great coach by the name of Bill Stein. And I'm like, hey, coach. And he lived up in King City, up where Sean Tucker is.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you'd ever trained with Sean Tucker.
Yeah, I've flown with him a bunch and been at his school. And I said, hey, man, I want to come do just an inverted spin camp. So we would go do camps together all the time.
Yeah.
Prep for competitions. Like, come on up.
Yeah.
So we spent 3 days, did hundreds of inverted spins.
Whoa.
And I mean, it's a painful thing. It doesn't feel good, like when you're doing them. And by the end of it, he's like, all right, man, you got these. You're good to go. But before you go, I'm going to give you 2 pieces of advice when you go home. He said, first thing is when you go to fly these by yourself, I want you to climb to 60,000 feet. What he meant was fly as high as you can in case anything happens. Because we were practicing like 4,000 or 5,000 feet.
Oh, shit. That's pretty low.
Yeah. And he said, so that's the first thing. Second thing is I had this exact same fear in this exact same airplane when I was starting. And it took me 5 trips to the airport to get the balls to get in and go fly.
Really?
And so just when it's your day.
So this is normal. This is normal.
I mean, if it was normal for him and it was normal for me, and maybe for others too.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, cool. So anyways, flew back from King City to Van Nuys at the time. And that next weekend went to the airport. And I opened the hangar door and I was like looking at the plane. I'm like getting ready to go. And then I closed the hangar door and I walked home or got in the car and left.
Interesting.
Like, it's not the day.
Yeah.
So next weekend, went out to the airport, opened the door, pulled the plane out, got my parachute on, took my parachute off, put it out, put the plane away. Once again, it wasn't the day. The next weekend, finally, I go to the hangar. It's a beautiful bluebird day. Open up the door, pull the airplane out, and like my head, I can hear like Top Gun music going.
Really?
Like, like I'm ready to go fly. So I put my helmet on, I put my parachute on, I get in the bird, start up, fly off towards near the Six Flags Magic Mountain area. And I remember his piece of advice. He said, I want you to climb to 60,000 feet.
Okay.
As high as you can go.
Yep.
So I'm like, screw it. I'm going to go to 10,000 feet, and the pits is really high. So I climbed to 10,000 feet. It's cold up there in the pits. There's no heater or anything.
Yeah.
And I remember I was up there. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this. And so it's my first time doing it by myself. And my heart is racing. I was terrified.
So, but you'd done it with an instructor.
I'd done it with an instructor a ton of times.
So now you're doing it by yourself, which changes the
everything kind of changes.
The
the airplane's different.
CG's different. All that stuff changes now. The weight's different.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So anyways, I was like, all right, dude, you got to do this if you want to move forward in your career. And my heart's racing. I said, turn the plane upside down, pull the power to idle, push the nose over, get it to a stall, kick the rudder, 1 turn, 2 turn, point at the ground, recover. Nailed it.
Nice.
Like, I was scared. That was awesome. No problem. Let's do it again. So back up 10,000 feet, power back up. And like, all right, heart's still beating, but not as much.
Yeah.
Roll it inverted, pull the power back, push the nose over, get it to stall, kick the rudder, 1 turn, 2 turn, start at the ground, pull up. Easy peasy. Like this was the guy I knew, like, no problem. I'm a badass. I got this.
Hell yeah,
right?
you are.
So I'm like, all right.
I like it.
Yeah. Now I'm like relaxed. I'm like, all right, well, let's go do this again. So I get back up. Now no heartbeat. Everything is cool, calm, collected.
Yep.
Roll it inverted, push it up to the nose, hanging from the straps, power idle, kick the rudder, 1 turn, 2 turn, put in the recovery, and the turn doesn't stop. It goes around another turn. Now I'm 10,000, 9,000 feet.
Yeah.
Now it starts to accelerate.
It's accelerating.
It's accelerating.
You're spinning faster.
And so for your listeners to understand what that feels like, in an inverted flat spin, it's like you're in a chair, you got a seatbelt on, invert the chair, drop it from a chain, and have somebody spin the chain. That's what it
Oh my
feels like.
God.
And all the flight controls are backwards.
Yeah.
And so now I'm actually starting to panic.
And you have no rudder authority?
Well,
Rudder's not doing much.
I'm putting in flight controls, but it's not doing what I think it's supposed to do. And it's getting more aggravated. And it's spinning so fast that my glasses come off my head, my headset comes off. And it's like, I'm gone from thinking I'm an incredible aviator to literally just a falling piece of flesh in a machine. It is completely out of control. And now I'm watching the altimeter go 6,000.
Yeah.
5,000.
And you're watching your altimeter.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm watching this.
You're looking at, what is your airspeed saying? Zero?
Zero, but you're falling down. I'm staring at this ground coming up at me, and the altimeter go 5,000, 4,000. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And in this airplane, if you wear a parachute, but you don't have like an ejection seat.
Yeah.
Like,
how are you going to get out?
Well, so if in these types of planes, you kind of have to be like getting out at like 1,500 feet to have time for parachute open and all that stuff. And the process to get out is there's a red button. You push that button, you put your head down, you throw the canopy back, because if you don't, it can take your head off. Then you got to like disconnect your headset and make sure it doesn't stay connected when you go out, because it can take your head off. Oh, and then you got to like throw 2 latches, and then you got to jump out and try not to hit the tail, because it'll take your head off. There's a lot of ways to lose your head when you fly. Right.
Well, if the airplane's doing all this like upside down flipping, you may hit the prop.
Well, probably not the prop. You'll usually get kind of launched out because it's centrifugal force.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm actually starting to run through these procedures in my head going, holy crap. And if I got to be out at 1,500 feet, I really got to like start this at like 2,000 feet.
Yeah.
And now I'm at 2,500 feet.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, oh crap. And I was fucking pissed. I was so angry.
Yeah.
I trained so hard. I'd done all the right things as a pilot. Like, I wasn't being irresponsible, And it was like 2,500 feet or 2,000 feet or so. I was angry, and I threw the stick out of my hand because it wasn't doing anything, and I'm getting ready to jump out of this fucking airplane.
Yeah.
And I get my hand up to go hit this red button, and just as I'm about to hit the red button, the spin starts to slow down. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Now I'm at 1,500 feet.
So you're in the airplane now.
I have to make a decision. It had fooled me once before. It slowed down and kept going.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was actually recovering or if it was fooling me again. Mm-hmm. And so if I went to recover and it fools me, I'm not gonna have time to get out. Or I can just jump out. And there was no thinking. I just grabbed the stick. And now it's 1,000 feet.
Holy shit.
And
you're descending. I'm guessing you're coming down at 6,000 feet a minute.
Going down really, yeah, that's probably about right.
Yeah, so you probably have.
I've had
20 seconds.
Yeah, that's about
roughly.
Right. And so I start pulling the stick. Now, in normal aerobatic training, like whenever you're going negative G, you get all the veins are open up in your neck and all the blood's pulled up in your head.
Yeah.
And if you're going to go positive G, to clinch down so the blood doesn't shoot out.
Yep.
Well, all my training had gone out the window at this point. I was
just in survival mode.
I was survival mode.
Yeah.
So here I am falling for a minute and a half, get to the bottom of the spin, I'm pulling, and I bottom out probably 600-700 feet.
Holy
and as I do that, I'm pulling G, and I pass out. So.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So as I finally
Cyrus.
come to, I'm staring at a mountain.
You're straight and level.
No, I'm like just on a positive trajectory, but there's a hill right in front of me.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God.
You're still there. Keep fighting, baby. You got to keep fighting.
Yeah. So I passed it, and I kind of like, power back up and start climbing up and away. And I'm like, what the hell just happened?
Shit.
How did I get myself into that?
Wow.
And so at first I was checking all my body parts, make sure everything was still connected and the plane was still all in good shape. And I just started climbing, and I'm like, man, what happened? I did all the right things. How did that happen? And I had this really incredible moment, Jason, that I'll never forget. Flying was such a big part of my life then, it still is today.
Yeah.
It built all my identity, my business. I had a realization, if I went back and landed right at that moment, I may never fly again. And I sure as hell wouldn't fly this plane again. And I had a moment of like, that's the equivalent of death. Because so much of me was that.
Yeah.
And I sat and I pondered there for a bit. I'm like, I can't go back. I have to do this again. I can't go back without having tried this again. Because if I don't, I could be saying goodbye to the rest of my flying career. And that was so important to me. Yeah, it now sounds whatever, but at the time it was like my only option.
Yeah.
And what I said is, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to review everything I possibly can. And if I lose control and if I'm not in control by 5,000 feet, then I'll jump out. Yeah. But I'd rather that be the outcome than saying goodbye to my flying career.
Wow. So you get the airplane back under control. You're climbing out and you're having this conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
And now you're starting to tell yourself, I'm going to go do this again.
Yeah, it sounds crazy, like now talking about that.
Well, weren't you telling yourself, like, Cyrus, that is the most crazy bullshit thing you've ever told me to do?
Yeah, it was. But
here we go. We're going to do it.
It wasn't like, it just like pulling the stick. I wasn't thinking. I was just doing what felt like the right thing to do.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
And so I climbed back up and I reviewed everything. Like, hey, you've done this. You did this at least a couple times successfully beforehand.
Yeah.
Like, let's try to repeat that.
Yeah. Holy shit.
And I did, and it worked out fine. And I flew, said, okay, now go home. And let's go.
One more. You did one more.
Just did one more.
That's it? Okay.
Yeah. And I kind of like licked my wounds and like, let's go back and land. Now, a really interesting sort of end to that story is the second way people would crash pits is on landing because they're really, they're really unstable and
the tail loop.
Yeah, ground loop and all that. And so I'm coming in to land at Van Nuys, runway 16 right. And all of a sudden I noticed my hand starts to shake. And I looked down, I'm like, what the hell's going on? Mm-hmm. And I realized I'm going into shock.
Really?
From what had happened. It was, 10 minutes later.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God. If I survive that, but crash on landing after this, like that's not an acceptable outcome.
Or even just have a bad landing.
Yeah. So anyways, I end up getting on the ground. I taxi, call it to the hangar, get out, and I become like a puddle on the ground. And I like crawl into the hangar. I call my coach. I'm like, dude, I can't believe what just happened.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, that kind of happened to me too. I'm like, what?
Just tell me now. He's like, I didn't want to tell you.
Yeah. And, but I got to tell you, as painful and scary as that was, it may have been the most important moment of my life.
Yeah. Hey,
we got a fighter jet going by.
Nice.
That's pretty unique.
I wonder what that was. I didn't see it.
Yeah, that sounds pretty unique.
Well, it's what's that? You can hear that? Yeah, it's an aviation podcast. We got a fighter jet flying by the building right now.
Incredible.
That's pretty cool.
Either that or we're getting attacked.
or being defended. One of the two.
Right, one of the two.
It's when we like aviators, I mean, that's a pretty aggressive story. Unfortunately, it's not an uncommon story when you talk about aerobatics. I mean, we've all had things that have scared us in the airplane, and hopefully, there's that old adage, like you start with one bag of luck and one bag of experience, and by the time the bag of luck is empty, your bag of experience is full. But and my experience in aviation, I've always been, no helicopters. I'm the boring. I'm just going to fly straight and level, and it just that stories like that have just kind of scared me from ever trying to do that kind of stuff, and that was just me. So when you go through an experience like that, when you mention I'm going into shock, like so many things are happening in your body, not only physically from all of the G loads and blood moving around your body, but emotionally, right? I mean, it's to be able to recover from something like that and then go do it again, holding your composure. That's pretty exceptional,
Again, I'm not sure it's anything I should be proud of because it could be called stupid as well. I'm sure if my parents were to listen to this, they'd probably throw up in their mouths. But it was like I said, one of the most incredible. And look, I had PTSD from it. I popped all the blood vessels in my eyes. I had bloodshot eyes for a month.
Really?
So every time I look in the mirror, I'd have to be reminded of this.
Yeah.
And it scared the crap out of me. But it actually it woke me up that like life's short.
Yeah.
And you got really lucky, and somebody was looking out for you. Yeah. And you better think about what you're going to do with your limited time on planet Earth really thoughtfully.
That's true. You've had a lot of flying adventures. When I first met you, I'm gonna talk about a little bit about how we met. You were running a company called Jet Aviva. You and your partner Ben, which I want to talk about a little bit later, but you guys have started this new company, and you helped us with some deliveries of airplanes for my young company as well. We're both young in the business.
We were
trying to get our companies going. But when I first met you, you told me some stories about crazy flying you guys were doing, like flying a Phenom 100 to India, and just like, I want to hear some of your flying adventures, because you've done some pretty cool stuff in really small airplanes.
I mean, a Phenom 100 is not a really small airplane. You know, it's still a jet. So
well, I fly G550s.
Yeah. So. But I'd imagine not everybody listening to this is, you know, their measurement is calibrated a little differently. Man, I mean, I tell you, the thing about aviation is my two favorite words in one, which is adventure and fellowship.
Oh yeah.
And that's really what aviation's about, is going and doing really cool, exciting things and doing it with people you want to spend time with in a cockpit and create memories. And those memories translate into relationships and, you know, in learnings. And I've had my most important life conversations have been in the cockpit with someone.
You're sitting there next to somebody for a long time.
And you're as close to God as you can possibly be.
There's nothing to do but just be chat and if
you spend enough time up there, you start to get pretty spiritual, and you look around like, how the hell did this sphere thing that we're flying above with all these little people down there, and I get to look down at them, and there's dead dinosaurs in the wings that somehow make the spinny thing spin and make it's crazy.
I love the dead dinosaurs. Dead dinosaurs in the wing.
Yeah,
That's what makes airplanes fly.
But when you break it down to what's actually happening, we get lost in the freaking magic. Yeah. It is absolutely magical.
It is magic.
All the systems come together for us to be able to do this.
Yeah.
And so, man, I had lots of adventures, but I would say, you know, one of the coolest adventures was the first time I crossed North Atlantic by myself.
Yeah.
It was in a CJ3, and it was another one of those moments where I was like, I've been flying for a while, but I was kind of scared. You're over the water by yourself for a long time.
I mean, for our listeners, flying over the North Atlantic is a thing. I mean, it's the first time I did it was in a much, I was in a Gulfstream, but there's a lot of things that can go wrong out there. And, when you have an aircraft with the more limited capabilities you have, the less options you have. So that's a handful to fly over the North Atlantic in a CJ.
Yeah. And it was cool. It was wintertime, and I was flying from Europe back. So I was into the wind and landed in Iceland, and it was terrible weather going in Iceland, just crap.
Reykjavik?
I was at Keflavik. Keflavik. Right. And so landed in Keflavik. It's icy, sleety, just bleh. Yeah. Pull in, and then I wanted to. There was a Soul Cycle class in Manhattan that I wanted to catch.
Okay.
So I timed my
So you get there, guys. So you can make spin class.
I kind of was like, I really want to go do this workout in New York on my way home, which sounds crazy as I say it now, but whatever. We give our reasons for missions to move forward, and I had to ultimately get the plane to California, and so I kind of timed my rest and sleep and flight to all kind of coincide so that I could make this. So I slept for about 6 hours and woke up at 2 a.m, Reykjavik time. It's nighttime again. Terrible weather, absolutely terrible. And
were you single pilot?
I was single pilot.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's wintertime, nighttime, crummy weather, single pilot, North Atlantic.
Just keep adding it up. Keep
adding clearly a lot of really good decisions all going together. And but I felt good. I felt rested. Get to the plane, take off, 300 feet, I'm in the soup. Yeah. And, now we're out over the ocean, and I'm in the soup until 43,000 feet.
Oh.
And I pop up at 43,000 feet.
Icing all the way up.
Yeah, I had all the stuff. And as I popped out, I was inside of a Aurora Borealis.
Oh, epic. Wow.
And it was the most, unbelievable experience. I cried like a little baby for that entire 4-hour leg from Keflavik to, I think, Goose Bay is where I was going or somewhere. Yeah. And it was just this incredible moment of man, I'm out here 1,000 miles from the closest human being at 3 a.m, flying an airplane by myself inside of this orb of green and purple and yellow that
and when you're at that altitude, it's not above you, but it's also below you.
It's all around you. Yeah, it feels like an alien thing that's around you. And again, I was just super like affected by like, wow, like I'm so lucky to get to do this.
So this is one of the things, like this is one of the benefits of being a pilot. And there's a lot of downsides, but there's so many amazing things that you get to experience when you do things like that. And I remember the first time I ever experienced the Aurora Borealis, we were flying a G5 from, I think Van Nuys. We're coming out of Van Nuys going to Germany. And we flew really far north, and we were doing the red eye. So it was just me and the other pilot sitting there. I think the cabin attendant was asleep in the rest area, and it was just the other pilot and I. Dead calm night, not a drop of turbulence, just calm, dark, and the Aurora, it was just surrounding us, and it was so bright. It was like the cockpit was glowing green. It's just you just don't like
until you
it's such
experienced
a unique
it.
Experience.
It's like having a kid. Like until you have one, you like don't really understand what that's like.
And it feels like you're with God. It's just amazing. You're right. I love that. God. So your mom, I'm guessing your mom was pretty upset after you heard about the flat spin.
Never told her about it.
Never told her. No. She's going to hear about it. She knows about it by now. Come on.
No, don't think any of my family know about that.
Well, just don't tell them about the Flight Club podcast.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right. Well, I want to know a little bit about Cyrus. Let's hear about young Cyrus. How did you come to aviation?
Well, so my parents were originally from Iran. And they left, they're refugees from Iran. They left in 1979 during the revolution. And they, like many families that emigrate to the U.S. to find a better life, they lost everything and started anew in New Orleans, Louisiana. Yeah. And that's where I was born. So I'm one of like 2 Persian Cajuns you might ever meet.
Nice.
And
do you speak French?
No, I can speak Farsi, but not a whole lot of French. But my dad had got his pilot's license in the U.S. when he was in college.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he and so we always kind of had an aviation like thing in the family. Like he didn't go more than like 100 hours, but like it stayed as like an interest to him and my big brothers. I had 2 older brothers, and I was just bit by the bug since I was a little kid. And finally, on my 11th birthday, I convinced my parents to give me a flying lesson. Yeah, and that was a really expensive flight. Because after that, like I did everything and anything I could do to be at the airport and worked 3 jobs throughout all of 11 years old to high school to pay for my flying and joined the Civil Air Patrol. And that's where I met my co-founder, Ben Marcus, when I was 11. Yeah. Who was another 11-year-old kid who was learning to fly.
Really? You guys met at 11 years old. Now, that was out here in California, right?
Santa Monica.
You moved here.
Our family moved to LA when I was 7.
Okay, did you do all your training at Santa Monica? Really?
Yep.
What school?
Justice.
Justice?
Yeah.
I was at the competitor school down the road, American Flyers.
Oh boy. I didn't know that. You learned at Santa Monica?
I did. Yeah, I did. I did all my primary training up through commercial there, and I instructed at American Flyers.
Far out.
For a couple of years. Yeah.
We may have crossed paths.
I'm sure we were on there. We were competitors.
Yeah.
Like there's those Justice kids.
Yeah.
They're the worst.
So, but yeah, it started then, and then also Angel Flight. So we started volunteering at Angel Flight. Yeah. Which is an organization that helps people that need to get to medical treatment. People donate their airplanes to fly them around, and I would be a volunteer in the office. I'd coordinate flights, and if you were good, you could negotiate to be the co-pilot.
Oh yeah.
As you're coordinating. So I'm like, this sounds like a great gig. I can like help people and I can jump and go build some flight time.
Yeah.
And then we sold it at 16, got our license at 17, became instructors in high school at 18.
Ben, we're doing this all together.
All together, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it was like working with 2 processors. Like he'd learn something, teach me, I'd learn something, teach him. And then we ditched class in high school to go teach grown-ups how to fly. And our teachers are like, you should go do that. That's a lot more interesting than what I'm going to teach you right now.
Yeah.
And
your parents were full on supportive.
Yeah.
They loved that.
They were like, I probably had 2,000 hours of Microsoft Flight Sim time by the time I was 14.
Really?
And they'd like yell at me, like, stop playing with your computer. I'm like, no, I'm not going to, because this is
preparing for my future, Mom.
And hey, it paid off pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were generally pretty supportive. And and that I couldn't have done it without him.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But, one thing I was really happy about is my parents weren't in a position to pay for the flying. And as we all know, like flying's really expensive. And so I had to work a lot, like a lot of jobs to pay for it. And it just taught me the benefit of like hard work and what the impact.
Did you like aviation jobs, work on the ramp, fueling?
I did everything, man. I was delivering pizza. I was a Subway artist. I worked in Blockbuster. I was then eventually graduated onto the airport, which was like a big deal,
I get to park airplanes down chalk tires.
Yeah, I couldn't be happier. And that was pretty awesome.
Yeah. What was that at Santa Monica?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Santa Monica.
I think that I love. I never did that. That wasn't my path. Through aviation, I just went straight through and it was a pilot. But I think that, going through that whole experience, like being at the airport, seeing all the different operations, chalking airplanes, fueling airplanes, emptying labs, like all of those things, like you learn so much about the business side of it too. Even though you're not thinking about that, you're learning about the business side of it. You're seeing, I know your brain too. You're a problem solver. You want to I can do this better. I can do things. I know you're looking at these things going, man, this is how we should be doing this.
I was more concerned about building flight time at the time, less concerned about solving world's problems, but that kind of came a little later in life.
Yeah. That's cool, man. We're going to talk about some more aviation stuff in a minute, but you had a kind of a period in your life, and you like to kind of do some hard things. And I know one of the things you and I have in common is we've both done Ironman, and that is really fucking hard. It's a very hard thing to do.
Well, you've done them like competitively, and we're like trying to win. I was just trying to cross the finish line.
Either way, it's just as painful. It doesn't matter if the longer, it's just as painful.
Yeah, it sucks, but it's amazing and it's great, and I'm really, really happy.
Why? Tell me, that's it, because you just I'm gonna go do this. That's a pretty wild thing to just go, I'm going to go do an Ironman. How in the hell did you come up with that? Where did that come from?
When I was a little kid, I remember watching on NBC the
Ironman World Championship.
Yeah, the Hawaii Ironman stuff. And I remember watching going, these guys are supermen. I can't believe anybody does this. And I grew up as kind of a fat kid. Oh. And I always kind of had a complex around that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I finally ran a marathon when I was my late 20s or so.
Yeah.
And I was in pretty good shape. And then it was a really funny story. Kind of let myself go a little bit after that. And then one of my mentors, who was an executive at a very large company, was flying his Gulfstream from New York to China, and was going to stop in LA to say hi on his way. He had to get gas. He's like, hey, come meet me at the airport and, say hi before I go. And so I'm at Signature, I watch this big Gulfstream pull in, and it stops, the big door, kadoosh. And then, this is my mentor I'm excited to go see. And I go running up to the plane, and I hook a right because he's in the back, and we give him a hug, and he steps back and he looks at my tummy and he pushes, he goes, oh, you got fat.
Damn it.
I was like, oh. Signed up for Ironman the next day.
Did you really? Which Ironman?
It was Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Oh, I've done that one.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's a tough
one.
one.
My assistant at the time she was signing up for it, and she kind of had a crew, and it was one of the best experiences of my life that not sure I want to do again. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It's kind of a cool one-time thing to do.
Yeah, it's a big time commitment.
I've always kind of thought about maybe going back and doing some triathlons. I retired from athletics when I was 30. If the audience doesn't know, I was a professional athlete before I came to aviation, and I did triathlons. But I've kind of thought about going back a few times, and then I'm going to go do 5-10 mile run, and I'm wrecked for a week.
Yes.
And it dawns on me how much effort it takes to get your body prepared to do something
it's
like that.
It's a full-time job. On top of your full-time job and your family and all that. And, we were a gangster, man. It was you were winning races at 17, 18 years old. And
I started when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was a chubby kid as well. We have that in common. Mm-hmm. I started running and swimming because I was a chubby kid and found, I was pretty good at something. So that's what led me to that. So talking about hard things, you decided to start a business. Well, before you started, I want to talk to you about Jet Aviva, because I'm a huge fan of that company because you guys started out and you were doing something very different. But before that, you were with Eclipse Aviation, and you and Ben were both out there, and you guys were. Tell me about what you guys were doing. You were sales and demo pilots, right?
Well, I studied aerospace engineering in college, and I got an internship for Eclipse. This is back in 2003 to do propulsion systems engineering.
Oh,
and this is, for those that don't know, Eclipse back then was like SpaceX today.
Yeah,
it was everybody wanted to go work there. The best minds, like it was the coolest concept. They raised $1 billion in the early 2000s, which is like 20 billion now, whatever.
Well, they were going to produce a $sub-$1 million jet is what they were.
Yeah. I mean, they actually sold a bunch for less than $1 million.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why they went out of business, but
right. Cost them $5 to build.
Yeah. There was $2 million cost on top of that. But, so I worked as a propulsion systems engineer, and that was really cool. And then got into flight test, and then eventually got into sales, which was really neat because I was a pilot. I helped design the thing, and then when you're talking to people that want to buy it, they're like, well, I kind of designed that part and I can tell you all about it. And I think that's really where I learned the power of being an absolute expert on if you're selling something. Yeah. Like you can create tremendous trust through that credibility.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of been like one of my rules for me personally is if anything I'm in, I will be the world's expert in. I may not be today, but I will be eventually.
Right. Well, and so when you guys started Jet Aviva, and I met you and Ben through, you guys were, and I didn't know anything about your business when I first met you. All I knew is that I had to get a Phenom 100 with a 900-mile range from Brazil back to Southern California.
Yeah.
I had no idea how to do it. I had heard from a friend of a friend that these guys over at Jet Aviva were doing these deliveries, and that's how we met.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty interesting story. Do you want to tell it or do you want me to tell it?
You go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I call you. I think I talked to Ben actually.
Yeah.
I think I was interacting with Ben more than you, but Ben's like, yeah, in his sort of very stoic personality, we're gonna need, here's what we need. I need this. I need a credit card. And by the way, I need $25,000 in cash. And I'm like, what? It was like the fee, and I'm like, and so I called the owner of the airplane. I need $25,000 in cash, and it's just like these guys are scammers. Like, what's going on? Like.
It's a thing.
It was a thing.
You paid fuel and cash and all the handlers and all that.
Yeah, you guys had to land. So how many stops was it? 5 legs?
Yeah.
Something like that to get back to California. But one of the landings was at an airport in the jungle that they pumped jet fuel out of drums. Yep. And you gave him cash. Pilot got back in the airplane and continued on.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think they've got like Square now or whatever, Apple Pay, Apple Pay to help us a little bit. But yeah, that's and there's still places where you still got to carry cash to pay for fuel.
But you guys got the airplane delivered.
Yeah, we did,
and it was a great experience. I think you delivered 2 airplanes for us for your clients. I think we had mutual clients on those as well. We were managing, and you were delivering them and selling them. But I learned about your business, and it fascinated me. At least your early model was such a departure from the normal brokerage business. You guys actually were mentoring pilots, and there was you saw this market of, in this, and I think maybe it came from Eclipse. They were marketing this light jet for GA owners, right? People are going to transition from maybe a Cirrus or a light twin Baron or something into a jet, but they weren't jet pilots. And there's a lot of things that go on when you fly a jet, and you guys developed this training program, mentor program. I mean, how many pilots out there have you guys mentored? There's a lot.
There's quite a few. We've sold a couple thousand airplanes over the years, and helped manage training for a lot of them. And and I think that it was really just recognizing that like there is this whole new customer that's coming because of a whole new product that is available, which was this advent of light jets that weren't really around pre 2007-8, and the factories didn't really know how to take care of them, and the amount of work it really took to get them prepared to own and fly these things. And it's such an emotional experience. You can imagine you had these guys that had airplanes in order for 10 years, waiting for their plane to be delivered. Tell their mom, kids, partners, everybody, I got a jet coming and I'm going to fly it. Yeah. And then they go and they flunk. like, can you just imagine like the training, just, so we learn like, oh, wow, this is really important to like help these people get to their desired goal. And then a tremendous amount of trust is developed through that.
Yeah.
Again, through being an expert and, having some training in flight training. And then we kind of wrapped a sales business around that. And really the core of sales is trust. Can you build trust with someone, and that you can be a custodian for them? And so that parlay to building the largest jet sales company in the world as a result of it.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, the thing that I always admire, like most of your salespeople, which is also a very big departure, they're all pilots.
They were. It's not so much now because but that we were all, everybody had to be a absolute stick that knew what they were talking about and was flying with clients. And
that expertise builds trust, right?
That's right. Yeah.
I'm a pilot. We're gonna fly this airplane together. It was just a unique thing. And you guys, like, you started something that I always admired. I thought was totally different. I'm like, man, that is awesome. We have mutual friends that you taught how to fly jets, and they're still flying jets today.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Got a lot of babies running around out there, at least aviation babies.
Yeah. And maybe other babies. I don't know. Pilots.
Only one. Yeah.
Yeah, you're a new dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
How's that?
It's awesome. It's so great.
Are you loving it?
Love it. He's amazing.
How old is he now?
He's almost 2.
Almost 2. So you're getting some sleep now.
Yeah. But it's great, and I can't wait to pass all this aviation stuff to him.
Yeah.
Do
you tell me? So I have 3 kids, as you know, and they're getting older now. My oldest is 20, and I have an 11-year-old and then a 17-year-old, and nobody. My oldest has worked in our company a little bit on different jobs here and there, but the passion isn't there. And I'm not pushing him into aviation. I hope that one of my kids finds it. It would be, I'd love to share that with them, but it's something, I'm struggling with, like, do I push these kids into the thing that I'm really passionate about, or do I just kind of let them find their own path? And if they find aviation, awesome.
Yeah, you have a lot more experience with this than I do, and I hope that I can help foster enthusiasm. I was just reading 38 letters from John D. Rockefeller to his son that he wrote. It's a really cool book. And the thing he talks about a lot is enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And helping foster enthusiasm, and he'll take an enthusiastic person as an employee over a smart person any day. And it's how to foster it. I think I'll let you know how it goes in about 15 years.
Well, I mean, your kid, and if you have more children, they're going to grow up in airplanes from a very young age, sitting in. My first flight was on a commercial flight when I was 8 years old. The next one I was probably 14.
Wow.
But my kids, literally every single one of them, have been on an airplane since the day they were born. Yeah. Flying around in little GA airplanes and jets and all the things that their dad's flying around in. So it's almost like they've become desensitized to it a little bit, where when you saw it as a kid, you're like, oh my God, it's
Gosh, I mean, what I would have done to be able to own a 152,
I've always appreciated you as an entrepreneur, and you've got some next level shit going on as an entrepreneur. And you're also fostering entrepreneurs in the aviation space with UpPartners. You and Ben started this new organization. It's a fund, and you guys are focusing on the future of air mobility. Now, when I first understood your business, I was like, okay, they're, the new eVTOLs and the, human carrying drones. And then I started really digging into it, and it's way more than that. This is going to be a huge subject, and we could probably go on for hours, but could you kind of summarize, Cyrus, and you are an expert in this, you're kind of in the middle of all this. So what is the future of air mobility? I know that's a very broad question, but where's the hot spots? What are you excited about?
Yeah. So I think it's maybe important to ask why refocused on this new section of aviation compared to where I was before. What was cool about the Eclipse jet is that it made it possible for millions of people to theoretically own and fly a small jet that could never do it before. And I remember the excitement that created.
Yeah.
The enthusiasm and the playfulness and the hope. This idea is of how people could spend their time and energy on this new little jet. And it was intoxicating. And I always yearned to experience that again. And in 2016 or so, I saw the glimmers of that coming back when I started to see the convergence of technology to allow effectively, I remember having a vision of a drone going, if you make that just bigger, you could probably put somebody on it. And that's exactly what has happened.
Yeah.
But what's incredible is that it now you're talking about, this is an incredible statistic. Only 1 out of 5 living humans has ever been on an airplane today.
I read that in your information. I did not realize that. That's amazing.
Yeah, most people in America, or a higher percentage in America, but if you think about the whole world, all 8 billion people, most people haven't benefited from flight.
Yeah.
And what happens when you benefit from flight? You can go see things. You can go see people. You can learn. You can
expand.
Touch God's face. If you're above looking down, you can do business. And so it's a huge enabler for economies, for education, for culture. And so this idea of wow, there's maybe a future out there with all these cool things that are coming to have a dent in that number, making instead of 1 out of 5, maybe it's 2 out of 5, and eventually get to everybody benefiting from flight in a little different way. Yeah. So it's kind of the North Star around all this stuff. And I will tell you, everything, everywhere, all at once is changing in aviation. And World War II.
That is a lot to say, because it's never been the case.
One other time, World War II. That was the only other time where everything, everywhere, all at once was changing in aviation because of war. Yeah. And to some extent, the war thing is a thing now that's causing a lot to change as well. But you have 10 areas of converging exponential technologies all hitting at the same time, from battery technology to automation technology to additive manufacturing technologies to connectivity to, AI, all that kind of goes through. Yeah. And when you start to put all these advances happening at the same time and mix them together, we can't even imagine what's going to come from that. Wow. Now, there are on the order of about 400 companies developing a quote unquote flying car, and 98% of them probably won't make it. And that 2% is, you don't really need a whole lot more, for that to have a real impact. Yeah. And so, yes, eVTOLs, electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, are pretty darn cool. I sit on the board of one of the more prominent ones, Pivotal, which has got a product you can buy now for $200,000 and fly around without a pilot's license. Unbelievable. I'm an investor in Beta Technologies, which is also one of the really, really cool companies out there.
So Beta is that you guys just flew that aircraft, right? The Beta aircraft?
I haven't flown it yet.
Well, but the company did.
Oh, the company's been flying for a while now. I think 2-3 years or so.
And they did a pretty long cross country.
They've flown it all the way halfway across the country and back, fully electric. $17 of electricity per leg of flight. Let's talk about that for a minute. The economics. So I have a jet management business, and I manage and operate these aircraft. And the cost of operating an aircraft per hour is a massive thing. Now, the fuel is just part of it. The engines on an aircraft, I think the audience, should know, is every hour that airplane flies, those engines, there's a cost associated with that. And it's $1,000 an hour on some of these aircraft. Yep. But when you look at a battery-powered electric motor that has essentially no overhaul parts, that'll run forever, and battery technology, and if you can fly an airplane for $17 an hour versus even a light jet that we talked about, the CJ3, just with fuel and maintenance costs on that thing alone, it's $1,200 to $1,500 an hour. To go from that to $12 an hour, that's shocking and dramatic. Yeah, and I'm not sure it'll be quite that cheap, but it's on the order of. It's the one different thing with electric airplanes, and I have things I'm excited about and things that I'm pragmatic about with electric airplanes is because as opposed to cars, when you drive an electric car, out of a full battery, you might use 10% per drive. Mm-hmm. In electric airplanes, you're kind of using almost the entire battery every flight. And that has a huge impact on the life of the battery. Oh. So the biggest cost actually with electric flight is not going to be the electricity, it's the replacing the batteries every 1,000 flights or so. That's the most likely near-term highest expense item. But there's some other incredible benefits: noise, pollution, ease of operation. What's crazy, these electric machines, when they're like sitting still, nothing's moving.
Yeah.
It's just an odd thing, right?
It's really odd.
And so but I think for basic flight training, just electric airplanes is really cool, interesting. I think for like long-term, like far flying, it's going to be a really, really long time before I have any sort of rational electric solution for that, because you still need dead dinosaurs in the wings to make all that air move.
Power generation is a problem.
So there's some other really cool technologies happening around there. But you asked the question, what am I most excited about near term? Is actually drone delivery.
Yeah.
I think drone delivery is like, I don't think people realize like how fast it's coming.
Yeah.
And just in earlier this year, Walmart turned on 1.8 million homes in Dallas to get drone delivery. Like,
are you invested in drone delivery?
Yeah, we are.
What companies?
Well, we're investors in a company called Skydio that's in the drone space, and my partner in UpPartners is the chairman of Google Wing, which is one of the more prominent companies in the space. Yeah. But it's really, really neat what's happening in the drone delivery space.
So it's interesting. I've met recently the director of safety for a drone delivery company, Zipline.
Yeah, great company.
Yeah, their director of safety, they are actually operating under Part 135.
It's crazy. It's unbelievable that the FAA makes them be 135 operators.
Yeah, they're looking at them as pilotless air carriers.
Yeah, they have to they had to figure out a way to how to keep manuals on board. I'm not joking. That's like a serious thing.
Are you serious?
Yeah, like they had to figure out how do you solve the 135
just really small
manuals or electronically on board or whatever. Like this,
it's in the software.
You just have, the world's changing, and they're doing their best to adapt to the current framework. But
so in what context for drone deliveries, like everything across the board, medicine, blood, products you'd buy, like instant, you order something from Amazon and it shows up hours later?
Yeah, so just give you an interesting example. Like if you were to order, the number one requested item with Walmart for drone delivery is hamburger helper.
Okay.
Which is, you learn these things like, what? And you think about like, wow, if a family's sitting at their house and they're like, hey, we want to eat real quick.
We have some hamburger.
But we need a helper. And boom, within 3 minutes, it's there. That's pretty freaking cool. In Australia with Wing, the number one requested item is coffee, like hot coffee from one specific coffee shop.
Oh, brewed in a cup.
In a cup.
Really?
Yeah. So what's crazy is like you won't DoorDash coffee, right? Yeah. Because it takes 30, 40 minutes. You want coffee, I want it now and I want it hot. But when you can have drone delivery and I can have it within 3 to 5 minutes, it changes how you consume things.
Wow.
So that's pretty darn cool. Now you talk about blood. Zipline really has popularized this idea in sort of developing countries, particularly in Africa. And Rwanda and Ghana right now, 50% of the blood that's being consumed is being delivered by drone today.
Yeah.
And it's interesting is that these places that need blood in sort of not main city center areas, they can't keep a lot of blood on hand because of infrastructure and refrigeration and just the warehousing. But the number one request for blood is women giving birth and postpartum bleeding.
Yeah.
And this is where you start to connect the dots of like, wow, like the impact of aviation to be able to deliver that blood to that mother so she can be alive to take care of that child that otherwise she would have died and who knows where his life would have gone or her life. Like, cool. Amazing. That's really, really neat stuff.
Amazing, yeah. And like the folks developing this technology, they probably don't really even, that's not even a driver, that's just a benefit of what they're doing, And I mean, oh my God.
I don't think it was obvious for anyone when they start. Maybe the founder is like, hey, this is like a really obvious way to help people. But this is like, I'll give you an example. The microwave oven was invented by accident. And it was invented by a radar engineer during World War II who happened to be playing with this thing and walked by and had a chocolate bar in his pocket and it melted. It was by accident. And it's like, you don't know what the consequences of some of our discoveries are. Yeah. and so like, in aviation, as you put the pieces together, we're not sure what the consequences. In some cases, it can be bad, like what's happening with drone warfare. Yeah. Like, it's pretty incredible that $1,000 drone can make $1 million Abrams or whatever, $20 million Abrams tank useless. Yeah. So the future of warfare countries won't be building tanks.
Yeah.
Tanks are useless now.
Yeah.
Like relatively speaking, compared to where we were before.
Yeah.
It'll be drone on drone and humanoid on humanoid, like Terminator stuff. That's happening. That's really what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, they're developing the next gen fighter jet. I was, watching some news, on the new fighter jets they're developing right now. I'm like, why are they developing fighter jets with pilots? That just, by the time this thing is built, that's not the way they're going to be using these things anymore. It's really interesting. Mm-hmm. On the manufacturing, so on the manufacturing side, I came across a company recently. I was invited to their place over here in LA, Zinger Automotive. Have you seen these guys?
Yeah, they make cool cars.
They make really cool cars, but they also, their manufacturing process is working with aerospace. They work with Boeing, Airbus, Gulfstream. They're literally growing parts in their manufacturing machines. Are you guys looking at new manufacturing
totally
techniques like those guys are?
Yeah, I mean, the world of additive manufacturing is it's exploding between 3D printing and how you even design things using AI, where like there's no engineers involved in creating the part. Like you just tell it what it needs to do, and the AI creates it. Like that's democratizing. So if you have a 3D printer and an AI tool, anybody can build anything.
And it's better, stronger,
better, lighter,
faster,
all things. And so super interesting area for us, and a key unlock for America playing a really significant part in this new future.
Well, it's interesting. So I had the opportunity to go into their manufacturing facility and look at all their parts outside of the unbuilt car, and they look like skeletal structures. Mm-hmm. And he's like, these are, and they weren't cocky about it, but these things are just, he's like, this is perfectly engineered for what we want it to do. They're like, they literally said, this is perfect. It looks like it was developed by nature. And it's just the tech, and you could not have done that manufacturing even 4 years ago. They couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this whole idea of bio-inspired manufacturing is really interesting. If you believe in God, say, hey, he's had a couple billion years to figure it out. Like, and the fact, like, you look at bird structures, bird bones, and their how they like, that's incredible. Like, there's a lot to learn from what you see in nature, and now we have tools to be able to emulate it.
Yeah. We're running out of time here, but you've done a lot of speaking, Cyrus, at big conferences and on this. You are an expert in this, and I'd love to hear a little bit. You've spoken in front of some big conventions and industry leaders, and are you tell me about that experience and your journey through that and consulting on some of these things.
Well, first off, I had like a debilitating fear of public speaking growing up.
Really?
Absolutely. Like I literally would like freeze and like almost pass out. And it kind of.
Wait, hold on. All you like to do is talk. Come on.
Well, but I know you're like, Cyrus, you probably should go back to that state. But similar to the aerobatic thing, I kind of realized, hey, if I don't figure this out, like I'm not going to really go very far in my life.
Yeah.
And so I forced myself painfully with a lot of like fear and anxiety, like get on in every stage. That's why I said, hell yeah, to this. I need practice as much as I can get.
Yeah.
Because I think communicating is really important, and particularly if you are passionate and know what you're communicating about, and had an incredible opportunity to, with presidents and governors and ministers and some of the CEOs of the largest companies in the world, be a resource to help inform them about how everything everywhere all at once is changing, not only in aviation, but really mobility broadly, which is really what my work today is, investing in companies that move people and goods cleaner, faster, safer, lower cost, ground, air, sea, space. Yeah. And so it's kind of expanded quite a bit from where my career started. And it's been really cool to see people are very thirsty to learn, and the things that we're sharing are hopeful.
Yeah.
They're exciting. They remind us of what it's like to be kids and be like, you tell me there's flying cars, drones, rockets, spaceships, autonomous electric vehicles all coming, and that's a thing that we can play in. Like, yeah, that's real. Yeah. And here are the things that need to happen for this to happen quicker. And oh, by the way, it's really important that we continue to inspire our kids so they can help build the next version of that, and all the impact around economic development and education and national security. Like, we have a huge national security issue that is sort of converging around a lot of these things. So it's pretty fun.
That's awesome, dude. I'm so excited about what the work you guys are doing, and I'm watching it, and I love. I'm just kind of standing on the sidelines watching it go down, and I think you and Ben are in the right spot in the right moment in time, and you're the right people to be sitting where you're at, and you guys have you have the right mindset, like the why around all this stuff and the purpose, and making the world better, and being such an expert in aviation, sharing that with the world, and I really appreciate it, man. And I appreciate you coming on the show.
It's great to be here. Always, and any opportunity to sit and hang out and shoot the breeze.
Dude, we've hung out so much. I love hanging out with you, and you're one of those friends that I could, we could go 2 years without seeing each other, and it's like right back in the same old.
And I'll make fun of you. You'll make fun of me, and then we'll go on with our lives.
I love it. Well, Cyrus, where can our aviators learn more about what you got going? And we'll make sure this ends up in the show notes.
Yeah. On the aviation business, jetaviva.com. That's the first company started, and then UpPartners is the venture firm. Okay. Where we're building companies there.
Awesome. We'll make sure that ends up in the show notes. I want to thank all of our aviators out there for tuning in and listening to the Flight Club podcast. You can find us at flightclubpodcast.com. Like us and follow us. Cyrus, that was a ton of fun, buddy.
It was great, bud.
Thanks
for
so
having
much,
me.
bud.
All right,
Appreciate
man.
it.
All right.